Hey, welcome Savvy Investors to our YouTube channel for yet another live training session for those that are first-time followers of our channel or Savvy Investor. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. My name is Mike Ponte. I'm the founder of Savvy Investor and longtime Canadian real estate investor. Great to be here. Hopefully everybody's having a great start to their summer. And today we've got another great training session for those that are wanting to learn more about what's happening from a seasoned investor's perspective. And one of the main topics of discussion today is about investing in Mexico. So if this is sounding like you, post in the chat that this is something of an interest. I know for a lot of people, there's a lot of interest talking about investing in Mexico, which is great. Very, very exciting, especially during these kind of crazy times. You know, we got interest rates going up. I was just talking to our guest speaker just a couple of minutes ago. We got interest rates going up. We're seeing prices going down, and it can be really difficult to even contemplate what the heck am I doing in this real estate investing world to begin with, even consider buying in any market, right? And so that's kind of what we really want to talk about today. And for a lot of us investors, raise your hand if this is you guys. We're all wanting to grow, but in this type of environment, how do we do it? And even more of a big question mark is, where do we do this? So I'm actually very, very honored to bring in our special guest, Gary Hibbert, to share a little bit about his investing journey. We were only talking for a few minutes, but man, there's like things that are just like, it's triggering like instantly about commonalities of what's happening. So learning a little bit about his journey, reason why he got started investing in real estate, but why he also looked at possibly pivoting and going to a completely different market, Mexico. Yeehaw! You know, I wish I was actually there right now, to be honest with you. Like, what the heck are we doing here? Let's get down there. So maybe Gary will share his little link to a short-term rental so we can all jump and go see his place. So just a little bit about our guest speaker, Mr. Gary Hibbert. Many of you guys may have seen him. Not only is he an experienced real estate investor with his company called Smart Home Choice, but he has an amazing, amazing podcast called Real Talk with Gary. So you guys go check that out. Really, really great stuff. Not only is he an active investor, he's a podcaster, he's doing all this stuff. He's a realtor, an investor coach, and he's helping mentor people and supporting investors in our real estate investing community, which is just awesome. So Gary's been investing since 2008. Okay, that's a long time ago. Okay. And I'm not going to call him old, just so you know, because I've invested a little bit longer than him, and I don't think I'm old just yet, but maybe I am. Which is why I love hearing him, which is why I love having him here, because he can really talk about his experience of the good, the bad, and the ugly of this business that we are in. And we're very, very fortunate to have him share with our Savvy Investor community. So I'm very, very excited about having a great discussion. Hopefully he's going to be able to share some of his amazing wisdom just based on his years of experience as well. So before I get going and bring him online and stuff like that, just as a friendly reminder, this is a YouTube live, and I can see your questions and your comments and all that wonderful stuff. So please post to your heart's content. So get that keyboard going, ask all your questions, share your comments, and I'll do my best to answer the questions live and at the same time, even through the recording as well. I'm sure Gary would be more than happy to share as well. So as we are also, maybe a small little favor, as we are continuing to try to grow our YouTube channel, if I can ask one small little favor before we get started, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to help keep you informed of our upcoming videos. And more importantly, is just helping kind of support our community as well, providing us insight of what you guys are looking for in your investing journey with knowledge and training. Okay, so let's get to the topic at hand. And even more importantly, let's just welcome our good buddy, Mr. Gary Hibbert, to join us to our channel. So Mr. Gary, how are you doing today, sir?
Michael, I am doing awesome. Thank you for that warm and amazing introduction. I appreciate that. And it's great to be able to sit down with you and have this conversation and share some insights in regards to what I've done and what I see happening in the market. And hopefully,
awesome. So Gary's making us dream is one of the first comments right off the bat, and I think that's about Mexico, right, Laura? So I think we're all in the same book. How do we get down there? So Gary, I reached out to Gary because I've been following Gary, and he's very, very active on social media. But for a lot of people that are watching live or through the recording session as well, maybe Gary, would you mind maybe just introducing yourself, share a little bit about your story. You know, a lot of people know you from throughout North America, but maybe you could just share a little bit about yourself and just what your overall story is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Gary Hibbert. I've been investing in real estate since 2008. And one of the reasons why I ended up getting into real estate investing was this. I think I want to really kind of share the beginning piece. I think it's important because sometimes you're sitting there and you want to get into real estate investing. You're not too sure how do you do it or how does it work or the fears and everything that's involved in it. And the same thing that you may be thinking, the same thing that I had as well too in the beginning. And my brother had brought over The Secret, and we watched The Secret together. I'm like, this mindset thing is pretty interesting. And so I was like, I wonder if it would really work if I kind of start writing down my goals and really dreaming big. And so I started doing that with my wife. And then in 2008, if you remember, there was the financial crisis that they had in the U.S.
Yep.
And that was the same year that I decided to get into real estate investing. But here's why. Was, if you remember, there wasn't much that happened up here in Canada. We kind of did a little bit of a sideways thing, especially more specifically out in the GTA out here in Toronto.
Yep.
And I went into work, and I remember my coworker getting called in. And then when he came out, I could see the look on his face. And I was like, he just got let go. And then all day they were letting people go. And I was like, man, I need this job. If I lose this job, I'm going to be a lot of problem because I just bought a house. I've got a wife. I've got 2 young kids. And then the manager comes out and he goes, all right, whoever's left, you guys are safe. And I remember driving home and I said, never again do I ever want to feel like somebody's in control of my financial freedom or future. And so because of that, I started looking at different things. How do I get into maybe another business or maybe look at real estate, whatever it was. I started looking and I was putting myself into more debt. And so I went into the bank and I said, look, I got to take all this debt. I got to bury it into my mortgage. This was the 3rd time I was doing this. And here's where everything changed for me. I looked up at the index chart and I saw that inflation over the last 50 years, a big chart, was anywhere from 2% to as high as 17, 18, 19%. And so if I average it out, inflation was maybe around 4 or 5% a year. We know now what inflation is, but back then it wasn't that big of a deal. But I did a quick calculation on my raise at work, and it was $1,000 that I got the previous year. Not too bad, but it worked out to 1.42%, something like that. And that was when I realized I cannot mathematically outpace or beat inflation. If my home had bailed me out 3 times, what if I had just 1 more property? That was it. That was a changing moment in my life. And then at that point in time, I did everything I possibly could to continue to keep buying investment properties to get into real estate, something tangible, real, and a hard asset.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are realizing that, I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, to be honest with you, 2008, 2009, to your point, Gary, people lost their jobs and it was pretty ugly and it was not a very comfortable position. And at the same time, even during COVID, we're kind of seeing a little bit of that too. And just all of a sudden we're in a position where people are seeing how vulnerable they've become. And Gary and I were kind of talking just before we actually went live. And it's scary right now for a lot of people, like this inflation that people are dealing with right now. And probably, and Gary, you and I can, because we're senior, I guess. I don't like the term. We have to figure out a different term. Senior experience. How about that? More experienced individuals. We look at what's going on with inflation, but there's almost 2 generations that have never seen what's happening today. And it can be really scary. Is how is our income not keeping up with the cost of inflation? Look at our mortgage payments, HELOC payments, car payments, grocery bills, filling up the tank. So it can be scary, right? So, and I think that's where everybody's in the same boat together. And so for you were trying to pivot or evolve in regards to finding other different income strategies to help offset some of that stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It was really, I did it because I needed someplace to store my wealth, someplace to store the energy that I was creating, because it felt like I was on this hamster wheel. Waking up, going to work, coming home, waking up, going to work, coming home. And this is when, now after I bought that first property, I really started diving into the mindset piece, because I'm like, okay, now I have no money. How do I continue to keep scaling? And that's when I came across Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar. and hearing things like, work hard on yourself, you work hard on your job, you can make a living, work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. And it's those little small things where you're just like, oh, this is not only just about the technical piece of it, but it's also the mindset as well too, which is important.
Couldn't agree, buddy. Couldn't agree more. So that's awesome. So you've gone down this road, 2008, 2009. You've gone into this real estate investing world. And one of the biggest questions that a lot of people, especially when they first get started, and I'm sure you have these discussions with people in the industry as well, where do I start? What's the strategy that I focus on? So maybe you wouldn't mind sharing how did you get started? What was your initial strategy getting into this game? Was it just simple buy and hold? Maybe you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the first property that I bought, I knew nothing. I mean, nothing about real estate investing.
Yeah.
But I started telling people that, I want to do this. I want to get into it because there's something there. There's something powerful about the real estate piece of it. Here's what it was. It was this. There's two things here. So one was my wife worked at Bank Montreal. And once I understood that I wanted to get into real estate, I said, look, take a look at what people are investing in, because she was an assistant branch manager. And she came home. She's like, Gary, what's crazy is that everybody that is doing what we're doing, investing in RSPs, investing in mutual funds, they're coming in, they've got these fancy cars, they've got these nice jackets, but they're paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. And everybody that is where we wanted to be was investing in real estate. They had 2 or 3 or 4 properties, but they weren't having this lavish lifestyle. They were a little bit more conservative, but they had wealth. They had real wealth. I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I told a few friends, and a friend of mine came back about a month later. And he goes, hey, are you serious about this? I go, yeah, I am. He goes, well, look, my dad's going through this situation, going through divorce. Would you be interested in buying this property? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. No clue. I'm just like, I just said yes. I wanted to do it because I was getting that mindset sharpened now, like, writing things down, and I got to do this. And so went to the bank, got approved. It was an illegal 2-unit. His dad was upstairs, his sister was downstairs. It's not a really big deal. And so I bought the property. It was $200,000, not in the best neighborhood, but that's how I got started. And I did a joint venture with my friend, because I didn't have the money, or not all of it, and he didn't have all the money. And so we kind of came together. And that was when I also now realized not only the power of real estate, but also realizing that I don't have to always have all the money. So that really, there was a lot of light bulb moments just in that one transaction. And so that was what I did. And then a couple of years later, I was able to then properly legalize that property because it was in a grandfather state. And that was my first property. Second one, not so nice. I did that with my brother-in-law, made a ton of mistakes. I put tenants in. I didn't do no screening because I thought this thing was easy. I was like, oh, I just put them in. No, I don't need no credit check. I just put them in. And that was a huge eye opener for me. And so to wrap it up, here's what I did afterwards. Is then I found I was about to back out because I realized that what my friends and my coworkers would tell me, that real estate investing is risky. Don't do it. And I started looking online for a better strategy. And that was when I came across rent to own. And I did rent to own for a good 6-7 years. And I'm going back to, I think your original question was, I think what you need to do is to find a strategy. It should only take you about 3 months. And then once you find it, master it. Don't look at anything else. Just master that strategy. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later, then you can start to kind of move into something different.
And that's actually my next question. And thanks for being open about that. And it's kind of interesting, maybe as an individual that's doing rent to own. Again, we're dealing with some really unique times, right, Gary? And so it's kind of really bizarre. Is rent to own a good strategy right now? What's your thoughts just based on the way the market is right now?
It can be. I mean, things are starting to slow back down again. Sometimes, if there's a family that's in some financial difficulty and they really love their home, you can do a rent to own for that family so they can stay in their home. It gives them an option to potentially buy that home at a lower price because they've got some equity in it, and then buy it back in a few years so that they can stay in their home. There's different ways of doing it. So you probably will start to see maybe a little bit of a comeback in that rent to own strategy. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've seen companies that have continued to do rent to own, but what they've got to do is they've got to move more in the tertiary markets. They've got to kind of stay out of the hub, because doing rent to own, you want to kind of keep it within a certain price range in that 4 to maybe 600,000 kind of price range. When you start getting into $1 million homes, the numbers just don't make sense, and it becomes very difficult.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So, one of the things that I love talking with experienced investors is how they kind of evolve in some of their investment strategy. We just talked rent to own. And when I say investment strategy, I'm not just talking about the strategy per se, but even some of the different markets as well. So like, as we'll get to the topic, guys, hang tight about Mexico because I'm interested as well. But at the end of the day, how did you start, how did your investment strategy kind of evolve over time? And it can be about markets. It can be, going from, be it fix and flip to rent to own to, short-term rentals. How did your investment strategy evolve over time?
Great question. So when I got into the rent to own strategy, the key for me at that point in time and what was important was cash flow, because I no longer liked my job. And so I wanted to find a way to get out of it. And rent to own was a strategy where it was a win-win, where I was getting some good cash flow from the properties. And then I was also giving that family, that future homeowner, an option to purchase that home and get into home ownership where they weren't able to because of maybe, not the best credit, or they lacked the full down payment. However, after about 5 years of doing that and leaving my full-time job, what I realized was that I was starting to lose these assets. And so then I was like, okay, I'm creating cash flow, but I'm starting to lose the assets. I'm starting to lose a little bit of the cash flow. I need to now focus on the wealth building as well, too. I can't lose them all. And so that's when we now started buying properties, holding them. And then we got to the point where, what do we do next? How do we scale? So then we started looking at multifamily. And so when we started looking at that strategy, me and my wife, we took the course, started hanging out with a couple friends that were buying apartment buildings and everything. And this was a huge pivotal moment in our investing career. Was I sat down with one of my mentors at a Christmas party, and he goes, "Hey, so what do you got planned for the next year?" This is like around 2017. I go, yeah, I'm going to start buying apartment buildings. I think he could see that I wasn't super excited about it. And he goes, well, yeah, that's one way of doing it. And I said, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, what do you think is the pinnacle of most societies? And I'm like, I don't know what. And he goes, the bank. He goes, how many more doors do you need? How many more properties do you need? You have enough. You've built a substantial amount of doors. Why don't you offload some of them and then start to private lend? So then now you could take a look at really what's important in your life, focus on that to create the cash flow to come in, because now you've got a combination of lending money out with money coming in, and also still continue to wealth build with the doors that you have. Because when you start building 100, 200, 300, there's a lot of different moving pieces to it. I'm not knocking it by any means, but you've got to figure out what's important to you. And at that point in time as well, too, what I realized is that, oh, you know what? I don't love real estate investing. I thought I did, but I didn't. It was a vehicle. So when I actually took a step back and moved the ego aside, and I think that's an important thing, because you see people where they got to get 100 doors, or they're talking about how many doors they've got. You have to realize, is it the ego, or do some people really love chasing those homes? Because look, at the end of the day, I get up and I'm like, I don't like dealing with headache tenants. I don't like dealing with roofs and windows and furnace and all the things that come along with it. And so for me, we decided to do that. So creating the financial freedom, then we're like, well, how do we create the time freedom? That was really next. So because time is the most precious commodity. And that was really what we focused in on, was then, okay, cool, let's pull back a bit. Let's create that cash flow and use a different strategy.
Yeah. Awesome. Really. I hope you guys that are listening to this right now, especially for our newbie investors, pay attention to what Gary just said. That it couldn't be so much truth coming out of that. It's just not even funny. For me, I'm in the same position as Gary. Honestly, when we're evolving our strategy, and even myself, I was in an acquisition mode like crazy, and in a lot of cases, a little bit of inflated head. And with that being said, we just like, I want 100 doors or 200 doors. The question is why. We tend to lose track of what our initial why was when we first got in this game. And then we just got stuck in our ego. And then over time, why has to come back. And for me, I would rather give me 3 doors that perform well, that can help me accomplish my why, versus 100 doors, 100%. Right, Gary? So it's
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'll share. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go for it. You're the guest.
Well, I was going to share one other thing as well too, because when I get onto the time piece, and really when people get into this, that's really what they're chasing, is they want more time, right? Or they want to leave their job. So you have to always stay true to that, and really that comes down to writing down your goals, writing down what's important to you, and that was one of the things that I learned early on through the mindset. And if you take a look behind me, you'll see my whiteboard there, which is something that my wife and I use every single year. We're at the beginning of the year, and now that we're in July, we will take a look at it. We will check off what we completed, and then we'll do a mid-course correction to make sure that we're on track, and then take off things that are no longer we thought was important, and then add new things on because we're moving in a new direction. It's kind of like, say, sailing to England. You're going to encounter winds and storms, and so you got to do a mid-course correction to make sure that you're still on course. And so one of the things that we did early on was we sat down when we started our companies with the kids when they were really young, and we asked them, I said, what do you guys want from what we're going to build? And like, we want $1 million every year. Cool, no problem. We wrote it, and we had this big Bristol board. Wrote it all down. What else do you guys want from it? We want a mascot. What do you fine? Whatever. We'll do a mascot. What else do you guys want from it? And they said, we want vacations. I said, how many vacations do you guys want? 2 months vacation every year. And I said, well, what about 4? And I sat down after we were done and looked at this Bristol board of all the ideas that we had and the kids had, and we said, I wonder if we can do 4 months every year. And so what we did was we then decided to shut the company down in July and August and December and January. And we do that every single year. And the reason why we do that is because we wanted to see if it was possible, number one. Number two, we realized how precious time is because, when we're in our early 30s, my mom passed away. And a few months later, my wife's mom passed away. Oh, wow. And when you lose 2 queens in your life, it really changes you, and you realize that this is not a forever ride. And when you realize that, that is when you can get clearer with your goals. And so I wanted to share that because I think that's important for people to hear.
I love that. That is fantastic, fantastic information. I really like the 6-month checkpoint. And here we are. We're just literally around the corner. July this 1st is coming around the corner. 6 months in, guys. I don't know how we're doing with our goals and our accomplishments, but if you're kind of following what Gary's doing, I'm sure that whiteboard is going to be pretty full by next weekend, I'm assuming, right, Gary? So yeah, that's awesome. So great stuff. Love it. Now let me ask you, I guess the question is, now you're investing in Toronto. What made you explore kind of the international real estate investment world? And more importantly, I guess, particularly Mexico. We're talking about pivoting. And for a lot of people, this is a big challenge for people. They just can't, and I can comfortably say this being in Vancouver. And I say this in Toronto and Vancouver, but they sometimes get stuck kind of wanting to only invest in their backyard. They can't fathom going outside a different province, nevertheless, a different country completely. So what motivated you to kind of explore a completely different market that is outside the country, and then even more particularly Mexico in general?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, and I don't want to get too political here, but here's what happened. I think during COVID and with the lockdowns, what I realized was that I wanted geographical freedom. I never wanted to feel like locked down or caged up again. And so we started taking a look at how do we potentially live in another country and maybe even become a citizen so that we can move back and forth. Okay. And that's really where the exploration started. And so then we would wake up every morning and, I go to yoga. And in the off days when I don't go to yoga, we would sit down and we would watch these YouTube videos of these different places of where to live. We looked at Costa Rica, we looked at Belize, we looked at, then we started looking at Mexico and Cancun and Playa del Carmen, and we ended up settling on Playa del Carmen. And the reason why we ended up there was a few different things. One was we looked at the GDP of the country. It was like 1.2, 1.3 trillion. So it's very strong economically. Then we took a look at what does it look like? Is it similar to where we live right now? You know, they've got Home Depot right in Playa del Carmen, and Sam's Club and Walmart and high-end restaurants, and you can have a $2 taco if you want. And so we looked at it from that standpoint. Then we started taking a look at, because, you know, a lot of people, when you hear about Mexico, you hear about the cartel and you hear about crime. So we started taking a look at, well, what is the crime rate in Playa del Carmen? And when we took a look at it, you can see the stats is fairly similar to Toronto. And so we took a look at we took a trip down there, and my wife is very conservative. I'm a person that jumps in very quick, and I'll jump in, swim, and try to figure it out. My wife she'll dip her toes in, and how cold is this water? How warm is this water? She came back after about we were there for about a week, and she just fell in love with the place. And she goes, I want this place. And I was like, okay. So then we came back, and that was when we really had to kind of sit down and figure it out with our accountants and our lawyers to figure out how do we do this? How do we make this work?
Love it. Love it. Love it. So can you tell me, you know, I think this is an important one because a lot of people don't do what you just said, is they kind of do the reverse, is they go away on holidays first, and then they're just like, wow, look at the food is incredible here. The beaches are awesome. There's warm weather. Let's just do it. You know, it's kind of that whole, what is it called? Oh, no, it's escaping me, and I'm not going to remember what it's called. But anyway, they're buying holidays when they're buying a property when they're actually away on holidays. Right. And they're now taking the time to do their, which I love to call due diligence. And a lot of people don't talk about this very, very well. And I hate to say this, most investors don't actually do it. It's the sad part about it. Can you share a little bit about some of your process before you actually went down? What were some of those key things that you looked at again, if you don't mind referencing them again, if you don't mind? Yeah,
so we took a look at what was going on in Playa del Carmen. So, you know, the nightlife, what were the beaches like? What were the shopping and the amenities? What was the, you know, what we liked about it too is that it had a nice mix of local life and tourism. They're also building a rapid transit from Cancun to go all the way down to Playa del Carmen. And so looking at all of that, it made a lot of sense. We liked the fact too that it was a short flight to get down there. It was still in the same time zone. So we were just doing all of that due diligence before we did that. And then when we were watching these videos and different condos and developments and realtors down there, we then started to reach out to them, do Zoom calls with them, and then just ask questions and see what their experience was like, and if we kind of connected with them, and have them explain to us why Playa del Carmen is a good place to be compared to some of the other places, maybe say in the vicinity. And then once we did that, we're like, okay, we're going to come down. Here's a date, you know, here's where we're staying, and meet us at the hotel. And we ended up doing a property tour. So we get down there. Here's a funny story now. So we get down there, and he calls me up. He goes, okay, we're going to see it at your place at 9 a.m. I'm like, all right, beautiful. He goes, hey, look, you don't mind getting mic'd up, do you? I'm like, mic'd up? Like, yeah, I'm okay with it. And so I tell my wife, because we're having dinner late night, and she goes, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be mic'd up. I don't want to be on camera. And so I call him back. I'm like, yeah, my wife doesn't want to do it. He shows up the next morning. They got this minivan. We open up the minivan. There's a whole crew in there. He's like, you're getting mic'd up. So he mics us all up. And it was kind of like a house hunters in Playa del Carmen. And so we looked at about 5 properties. We were getting interviewed. We're looking at the different properties. And it was such a fun day. It's actually on, if you want, I can send you the video. But yeah, it's been released now. And it's a house hunters in Playa del Carmen, and me and Darlene are the star of the show, so it was a lot of fun. But it gives you a good feel of what we went through to also help anybody that watches to see where we decided to buy in all the different locations, and what you like and what maybe you may not like.
Love it. Okay, for those that are watching this live, put in the chat or in the comments if you want to see that video, because I can link that right up into the YouTube description as well. I know, Gary, send it to me anyway. I'm sure I definitely want to check this out. I'm
Yeah.
sure some of our individuals that are watching would definitely want to see that as well. So,
All right.
okay,
I'll see if I can find that for you.
sounds good. Now, real quick question now, and this is probably the biggest thing for a lot of people is, can you maybe share a little bit about some of the differences that you noticed between Canada and like Mexico in itself? What were market differences? Was there anything specific that really stuck out? Not so much in regards to foreign investors buying there just yet. I want to ask you about that too. But what were some of the big differences of the different markets when you were looking, I guess, in Mexico and Canada? Because this is a short-term rental unit, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
Yes. What were some of the big ones that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, the big one was obviously because we were not, residents of Mexico. It was difficult for us to get a mortgage. And
Yeah.
so that was one of the biggest hurdles that we had to overcome. And I guess maybe I'll spend a little bit of time on that because I think that's probably the biggest hurdle was how do we buy this property? So the very first thing that we did, and this is really important as well too for anybody that's listening, is the importance of having a strong team around you.
Yeah.
So important. And so the very first call that I made was I reached out to my accountant. I said, look, this is what we're trying to do. All our money is tied up in these properties or in lending our money out. How do we do this? What do you think? He goes, all right, I'll tell you what, give me some time. I'll get back to you in a few days. And so when he got back to us, he goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. You guys have corporations. And instead of just pulling the money out of your corporations, you're going to get hit heavy on tax. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to create what's called, there's different names for, but infinite banking. And so essentially what we did was we funneled the money from our corporations into an insurance policy, and then we use that insurance policy to purchase the property down in Mexico tax-free. And what we were able to do was with that particular property that we bought was we set up a 2-year payment plan. And so instead of dumping all that cash all at once, we've been doing it over the course of every month, just wiring the funds down to the management company down there. And that's how we were able to do it. Right. And yeah, and it was a really good strategy because essentially really what that is we've created our own bank. It's kind of like having like an unlimited TFSA account where you can now use that money, leverage it. But what you're doing is you're not taking the money out. The money stays in there. It's being invested. And you take that policy to the bank and they will give you the money just like that because it's been around for, I don't even know, 200 plus years. It's a very solid and consistent program. It works incredibly well.
Awesome. Very, very good. And I think that's one of the big ones for a lot of people is the financing piece. So that is some amazing advice. And I guess the important part is you need to obviously find the right people that can really understand this. Exactly like what you just said is your accountant was one of those individuals that took it, pull that information together and provided you the options. And if you're not getting those types of options from your investment team, you do need to go out and talk to other people that are actually doing this. So you can get some clarity before you go down there and try to invest, right? So can I ask another couple of questions? And I think this is one of the other parts is we just talked on the financing side, and there's always a lot of complexities with foreigners investing in a completely different market, a different country, even in the US. There's always challenges and obstacles and stuff like that. I guess maybe other than the financing piece, was there any other unique obstacles or regulatory complexities with investing in that market? And maybe you don't mind sharing just some of the things of how you were able to kind of navigate through some of those things other than just financing.
Yeah, well, the language, that's a big barrier. Right?
That's a big one. Yeah.
If you don't speak Spanish, it's something that you may want to, start sharpening up your skills on, right? So we had to find not only a good lawyer up here, where, I mean, we had a lawyer, but also a good lawyer down in Mexico. So this is now where it's using the skill sets that we had up here to saying, okay, what do we need to do down in Mexico? Oh, we need to build a team. So now we've got our realtor down there, and it's a great real estate company down there. Then we've got our lawyers down there who they're fluent in Spanish and in English. And it's great to have technology like Zoom now that you can easily have these conversations, and we record them all so we can always go back and listen to it as well too, because there's a lot of information when they're going through it all, and when you're buying in a certain location, what you can and what you can't do, and then also finding a good property manager, which we have down there now. And then
Yeah.
also, you got to furnish this place. So how are you doing that? Who is doing that for you? So we got a great designer down there. And so these are all the things that we had to kind of figure out while we were thinking about doing it, while we were down there, and when we came back, to make sure that we had the right boots on the ground to make sure that everything would continue to run smooth while we were still up here in Canada. And so far, it's been great.
Love it. Love it. And you mentioned something that is also crucial, especially in the short-term rental space, because that's what this is property management. And so maybe you could just tell us a little bit about property management in a different market. And I guess part of this is, it can be a little bit, as I said earlier, it can be scary to be investing in a different province, not even just internationally. The fear is just taking it to the next level. And so here you are doing a short-term rental. We are in Canada. We've got 2 different countries to go to before we get to Mexico. So how did you find your property manager? Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about, how do you manage a property manager in a different market like that? Is there a lot of difference between what you have to deal with here in Canada?
Yeah, what I found that's been really great with the team down in Mexico is they love WhatsApp. And so when it's WhatsApp, it's almost like this fluid conversation that continues to happen, as opposed to like email, where sometimes it could be hours or even a day or two before you kind of get back and forth. And so you can do voice recordings, you can do video chat, you can, so it made it really easy. So yeah, with the property manager, we went with somebody that was not a large company, somebody smaller scale, because we're all about making sure that when we meet them, it's a good connection. And it worked out very well. We kind of went with a little bit of our gut on that, knowing that they weren't a large company, but you know what, you get more of that hand holding, and that's what we wanted. And one of the things as well too is that we know that potentially we're going to continue to keep going down there, and I know that there's probably going to be a few of our investors that are going to want to also potentially invest down there as well too. So we want to make sure that we've got all the kinks out of anything that could potentially go wrong, but also have that team in place for anybody that's thinking about investing in that particular location.
Love it. Love it. And so, like, this great information, awesome stuff. And I hope you guys are listening and paying attention to this. And I guess, kind of a lot of the things that Gary's saying is, you're obviously doing your due diligence in the markets, you're paying close attention, you're building your investment team, finding the right people. There's a lot of similarities to what you're saying in Canada and even in the States and everything like that. It's kind of the same kind of story. And I think for a lot of people that are watching this live or through the recording as well, is you referenced earlier, the reason why I was kind of looking at a different market or COVID is a little bit of an escape plan from COVID in case that ever happens again. And rightfully so, because I think it's better to be in COVID than, no offense to our place in Canada. I love Canada, don't get me wrong. But if I can drink margaritas and Coronas and drink some amazing food and weather, I think I'm going to be going with Gary down there. So other than that, Gary, maybe you don't mind sharing a little bit about, it is an investment. Can you share a little bit about some of the differences between, I guess, even Toronto and even like Mexico, about some of the numbers? Is there cash flow there? Maybe you can just share a little bit about how are those kind of numbers looking like compared to out here? And I don't need to go into too much detail because I would imagine you chose that market for a particular reason, but I think it'd be very interesting to hear some of the differences between the two.
Yeah, so for the cash flow piece of it, and we're going to see where it goes, because we actually just listed it this week. There was a few things that we had to kind of get ironed out, but we finally listed it. I believe in regards to numbers, we're probably looking at it from around maybe 800 to 900 a month in expenses. And remember, because we did put cash down, and we're thinking we would probably make anywhere from, I'm thinking 25 to 4,000 gross income a month is what we're probably kind of be sitting around. So cash flow is going to be great. But we'll see, right? Because it is new. But I definitely know we'll cash flow for sure. I don't see any concerns there. And the other reason is that when we picked up that property, we also wanted a 3-bedroom. And when we went down there and we were looking for something specific, and so we found the 3-bedroom, and we're like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So when we went down last year, April, we didn't actually complete it until around November. So it took a while because we were bringing some of our strategies from up here in Toronto down there to Mexico. And so we had to then use their designers, and we ended up turning that 3-bedroom into 2 units. And so what we ended up doing, and it's so unique in Mexico, is that we have a lock-off in between where the 2 bedrooms are. On the other side, you have a full kitchen and a bedroom. And so they actually cut out a new door in the hallway for us. And so I was like, okay, so what's the process? And I think they looked at me weird. It's like what do you mean the process? Like, what tools are we going to use? I'm like, no, like, is there bylaws? Is it like, no, amigo, this is Mexico. We just cut the hole. We'll cut the hole. And then, so I was like, all right. So they cut a hole in the hallway. So now we've got 2 entrances into that property with a lock off. And so now we can rent it as a 3-bedroom, but then we can also rent it out as a 1-bedroom with a full kitchen, or we can rent it out as an apartment, or you can have 2 families that go down that just kind of want their own space. And so it'll create, I think, additional income as well too. So even if we're down there, we can still rent it out, right? So now that they saw that, I don't think anybody's done that down there in that particular building. They're now building a new building right beside ours, and they now have a lock-off feature in those units. So I don't know if we started it or not, but
well done. You might have to get a piece of that money from that. So that's awesome. Great idea.
Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things you kind of shared with me, and I want our members to kind of see this, because Gary's been doing this a while. He's changed strategies, changing different markets, trying something a little bit different. But there was something that he referenced about mini retirements, as you referenced, as mini retirements. Yeah. So maybe you don't mind sharing with our community what they are and why you do them. And again, can't imagine a better place than Mexico to do that kind of stuff. But maybe at the same time, maybe you wouldn't mind sharing what is that to you, and what is that, if you don't mind sharing with our community?
Yeah. So the mini retirements is essentially we now have shut down our company, Smart Home Choice. We do a lot of events from February right until June. We just did our last social event with our members and our investors, and we are now done. We are done until end of August. And so we've got a cottage that we go to and hang out and bring our friends and bring our families and go out boating and go sea-dooing and go to the sandbar and fire pits and probably a little bit too much alcohol. But but it's a time to spend with friends and family, and also it allows me to again reassess where I'm going. It's so important to do that, because what I think happens a lot of time, we talked about this a little earlier, is the ego is it can really get in the way of things. And so the 2 months allows me to really take a step back to say, am I doing the right things? Am I on the right path? Am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Am I being of service as best as I possibly can? And am I also spending quality time with my friends and my family, because it's an important piece as well too. And so that's what those mini retirements are. And then we come back again in September, and I can tell you this, I'm excited, because after 2 months of taking a break, and just so we're clear too, I probably work maybe about 4 to 5 hours a week. There's still some things that I got to do throughout the week and check on emails, but when I come back to September, I'm ready to rock, and this is where you realize you need purpose. A lot of times people get worried about or focus on, I can't wait until I'm 65 so I can retire.
Yeah.
I remember I said that to myself when I was at TD, and I was like, really? I'm going to wish away 20, 30 years of my life? And so then when you have purpose, then you don't have to worry about this time in the future. You can focus on what's important now, because then when I come back in September, I go hard again until around end of October. And then I take off again December and half of January, where I get to, again, enjoy time with friends, family, head out to Mexico, do what it is that I want to do. And so we create mini retirements, because if you retire twice a year, well, then you don't have to worry about retiring forever at 65.
Amazing. Who else wants to do mini retirements? Put your hands up, guys. I want to see you. So awesome stuff. So, Gary, and I think for a lot of people, they may be stuck right now because, again, they see what's going on in the market, and they're hearing kind of what you're doing and stuff like that. And again, it's a different market or different strategy in some cases. Again, it's true because you are now, I'm not sure what your experience is with short-term rentals, but you did private lending, rent to own. You've evolved and changed a lot of these different things. And, I've been doing this a long time too. And I've talked, and I remember back in the days, and you may have heard the same thing, is when you find a market, just stick with it and just stay with it. One strategy, and that's just what it is. And I've got a little bit of different perspective. And for me, I'm comfortable with 2 or 3 markets because it helps me diversify my portfolio. It requires more work. But let me ask you a question. When you're looking at maybe people that are just getting started, I shouldn't say getting started, do you recommend to investors maybe changing market strategies over time? Is that something that you would suggest or recommend for other real estate investors based on your experience?
Yes. Yeah. When I first started investing in real estate, we were in a particular market. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the areas out here, but we were in a city called Whitby. And then we moved into Oshawa. Then we moved to Curtis and Bowmanville. And we've always been slowly moving because, to me, what's important is also cash flow. Cash flow and fundamentals. And so we look at the fundamentals of, if we're moving to a new city, is the population going up or is it going down? Are jobs going up or are they going down? Follow your eds and your meds, which are your education and your hospitals. What's the infrastructure that's happening in that particular city? What are the vacancy rates in that particular city? And so when we start to take a look at those things and the numbers make sense, and then we have a conversation with the city, then we can say, yes, this is a good market. And then we can educate our investors and say, here is why we're moving to this market. And then what we'll do is we'll also purchase in that particular market so we can put our money where our mouth is, to saying, hey, we're not just telling you to go there. We're there as well, too. And here's the reason why. And, when we first started moving that, I remember the very first time, it was a Walmart had opened up in this new city that a lot of people didn't even know about. And I'm like, look, if Walmart is opening up there, I didn't have that type of a research and development department in my company. They know something, they see something. And so, there's a saying where, I don't know if I can say this or not, but they say, follow the shit. And essentially, when you start seeing the plumbing and they're putting in the pipes, they're bringing in the houses. And so that's what you want to do. There's infrastructure that's happening, right? So you want to pay attention to those things.
Very good stuff. Great advice. That's just awesome. So as we're kind of wrapping things up, and if you guys have got questions right now, you're watching this live, please bring them out, share them in the comments. We still got a few more minutes anyway. But my kind of final question that I've got for you, Gary, is, and you've kind of shared a little bit about this, but, for people that are getting started, they may be active investors right now. They're struggling or challenged right now in their market. In addition, there might be somebody that's interested in investing in a different country altogether. Maybe some final words of advice to our members out there that are kind of looking to expand, looking to grow, maybe go into a foreign market. What are some of your wisdom that you would be able to share just based on your years of experience?
I think probably one of the most important things that my wife and I did was sitting down and determining and figuring out what it is that we want.
Great.
So important. I think, if you just kind of keep things in your head, think of all the thoughts that go through your head every single day, millions. But if you actually sit down now with your partner or your spouse, and you now actually put things on a board, you will fight it out. I don't want to do this. This is not the direction that I want to go in. But now you can have that. You can have those conversations of saying, okay, now we've agreed to this. Now that we've agreed to this, how do we accomplish this? How do we move in the direction of doing this? And when you write things down, it's similar to placing your order to the universe. Whether you believe in it or you don't believe it, I'm telling you it works. I don't know how, and I don't care how. All I know is since I've been doing it, my whole entire life has changed. So I'm going to continue to keep doing it because now I have clarity. And what that also does, which is important, is it also allows you to say no. Allows you to say no to all the other things that are coming in and say, oh, that's a great idea, but no. Oh, okay, cool. I'll take a look at that next year and stay focused on that, because all you do is you go online, you go on, and you got these devices and you keep looking and you scratch. Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's a great strategy. Oh, we should do this. So clarity. Clarity comes with figuring out, writing down your goals and knowing exactly what you want. It could be 10 different things, could be 15 things, but those are the things that you focus on for the year and make them SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time.
Love it. That is awesome, awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Gary. Such valuable information. And I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of this for those that are watching live and also on the recording as well. So Gary, just before I let you go, if people wanted to learn more about you, where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Gary Hibbert. They can also find me at smarthomechoice.ca. Or just Google my name, Gary Hibbert, and I'm all over the place. So I think I
love it. Love it. Love it. And you know what I'm going to do is, like I said, he's got that video. He's famous right down in Mexico with his little tour and everything like that. So I'll make sure we post it. And I'll also add his website link as well as the social media links in the description in the YouTube video as well. So as we kind of conclude, Gary, thanks again for doing this. I greatly appreciate you jumping in and sharing with our community. It was wonderful to have you. So.
You're welcome, and I'll definitely send you that link to the video so people can see where we are and what we're doing.
Love it, love it. And for those that are watching this live or the recording as well, I want to thank you guys for watching this and hope you found a lot of value in the presentation as well. And if you haven't done so already, please do me one last favor. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button as we continue to want to grow our channel and keep you informed of upcoming videos as well. So regardless if you're watching live or the recording, please post your questions or comments. Hopefully they're nice comments below for me as well. And we'll make sure that we respond accordingly. So with that being said, thanks for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you at our next upcoming live training session. Cheers.